So he just starts singing this and people pause and join in. And as he's doing that, I just had this thought come in my heart, my mind of, I wonder if somebody here needs healing. And then the second thought was like, I wonder if somebody's got a problem with their feet. And so
Mhm.
after we finished the song, we just asked anybody need prayer for anything. And actually, I just want to step out. I thought maybe somebody might have a problem with their feet. Three of the people that we invited had problems with their arches and with their feet. And so we ended up praying for one of the ladies that came, and she had a 5 out of 10 pain. We pray a couple times. Her pain is completely gone. The Lord just moves mightily and powerfully. And then she takes off her shoes. She had indoor shoes on. She starts walking around barefoot. And she said, I can't remember the last time I didn't have pain walking barefoot. She said, What did you
Oh,
do
praise
to
the
me?
Lord.
What did you do to
Yeah.
me? And so Megan's like, well, so she just jumps into the gospel and just starts sharing with us.
Right.
Super simple. Welcome back to the H3X podcast, where Dave Miller and I, Mark Gearing, we explore the head, the heart, and the hands of the multiplying church and her leaders. In a recent episode, we talked about our three-part strategy and really the way that we're wanting to just begin to share with you guys through this podcast format in the days ahead. And we're excited to dig into a piece of that today. We'll continue to reference that and hopefully deliver some really helpful pieces to you that help you to see that in your own context. And so today, that's what I wanted to do here with Dave. Of we will talk a lot about strategy and how to think, but I also have found it be super helpful to do modeling and assisting of some of what these pieces can look like along the way. So we want to keep delivering the strategy piece, help to think, process it, but also, man, it's so helpful to just get some examples and to see what that can look like as that rolls out. So that's what I'm gonna do with you today. So that tee it up for us, Dave.
Oh man, Mark, you've been sharing with me, and I've just been seeing some testimonies and pictures of you guys and some of the work you're doing with this outreach tool that you guys have started to make use of, especially among the nations there where you're living in Queens. And it's a great model for how we're taking some of these principles that we're talking about and putting them into actual practice. So I just want to give you the floor today and for you just to unpack what do these meals look like and what is the process you're using to kind of get to a gospel conversation. And how's that been working for you guys?
Yeah, so in short, it's called a lost and found party. And not even that the name, that you have to use the name. I've heard some people call it an oikos dinner or a Matthew party. There's some different ways that people have referenced this idea. But I think the principle I would say that we're honing in on here in New York City is what our friend Guy Caskey, he calls it an event with intent. And, if you've been a part of a legacy church or you've gone to a traditional church, events are often just bread and butter. And it's because we live in an event-oriented culture. But those events are usually not leveraged to get to relational networks. And so the idea here is how do we go with the culture that's event oriented and have some events that have intent behind them so that it's actually getting to the gospel and it's done in a way that's actually a reproducing model so that those that might see that and experience that, their takeaway is not, wow, that's awesome, but I can do that. And so all that to say, we've been doing these, we call them lost and found parties. And there's two main components to how that works and pulling one off effectively. And so the first one is party. So we literally will bring together friends, and like the name says, we're going to bring together some lost friends, some friends that we want to share Jesus with, and then friends that are found, those that are believers, and ideally believers that we want to multiply this model into their lives and into their house. And so it is what it sounds like. We come together, we gather around the table, we plan a date, we're inviting neighbors. And so literally my wife and I and kids even, we've gone door to door in our apartment building, and we just connecting with neighbors, meeting them, and just say, hey, we're gonna have some people over soon, and just get to know our neighbors. Do you want to come? That's simple. And we'll offer prayer if it's relevant at that moment, but oftentimes it's just that simple. And then we've got friends that are coming in. We actually invite them to make some food and bring some food to share. So there's a meal as a part of it. And then from there, what we do, the second component. So I told you it's like a party, which again, super simple, but just want to make sure I'm unpacking all of this of like, hey, we're just going to invite friends. That's the first component. The second piece is we use a simple tool called the conversation quadrant to engage with those that come. And so this tool has four parts to it, quadrant, and you really see this four-part process of how to engage with somebody and get to the gospel. And you see this in John chapter 4. So we do very similar to what you see Jesus do with the woman at the well. So he meets her and he starts a casual conversation. Hey, give me something to drink. And immediately it goes from just hey, I like those shoes. Hey, nice hat. Hey, I've seen you around here. Just kind of a casual level. That's how we might do it, to meaningful, because she turns around and she says, why are you talking to me? You're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan. And it just went from surface level to like, why are you even talking to me? A
Yeah.
deeper, uh, like even a racial tensions kind of coming out there, some prejudice, like why would you even talk to me? And so they go back and forth, right? And then he says, go get your husband, or yeah, go get your husband. She says, I don't have a husband. And he says, that's right. The man you're with now is not your husband. You've had five husbands. And she says, wow, I'm talking to a prophet. And so it just went
Right.
from meaningful to spiritual. They go back and forth. She tries to debate him, but ultimately she says, when the Messiah comes, he's going to unpack all this stuff for us. And he says, I'm that. I'm the Messiah. And now she
Yeah.
turns around and she brings the whole town into a discovery. So we just see four pieces to that in one conversation. A casual conversation becomes meaningful, becomes spiritual as the issues of life are brought up for her, and then ultimately gets to the gospel of he is the Christ, and the whole town then begins to enter into discovery. So that's the principle, and we can link in the show notes the tool of how that looks for a conversation quadrant. But what we found is in practice, those two pieces together, especially in a place like New York, I think this is true everywhere, but I'll speak to my context of when there's broken down oikos, relational connections, or at the very least, they're really weak. It can be the felt need is I feel lonely, I feel disconnected. And so by us just doing, and again, it sounds super basic because it is, that we would bring together people, be the person of peace, and serve some food to them. And then through that simple process of casual, meaningful, spiritual, and discovery, we engage with those that come. So that's the idea of it, Dave. It's and I've talked for a long time here, but that's both how we came about it, and then the simple process that we use when we're doing it.
So a couple of quick questions that are practical. About how many people are you inviting over at a time when you're walking through these lost and found parties? Like what's your goal in terms of how many people come to them?
That's a great question. Yeah. So what we have done as we've done them, when we started, we invited super widely because everybody we're meeting is going to be in that casual conversation. And so at first we just invited super widely, and we'll do another one soon, my wife and I, and then we're multiplying this to a couple of other disciples right now, and just invite everybody, because everybody we meet are going to be kind of more at that level of we don't know them super well, so let's all just get together. And then what we found is as we're going along, just in a couple that we've done, we had some issues of life come up for a couple of people. We immediately used that to bridge into our 15-second story. It was a time in my life I struggled with some health issues. I struggled with depression. I didn't know what to do with it, and so I finally had to turn to Jesus in the midst of that. Here's what He's done in my life. Is that part of your story? And so from that place, that opened up an opportunity to share the gospel with those. And so we've then since then done another one where we just focused in on those that were responsive so that we could
Okay.
take those relationships to the next step. So I think it can be super helpful as a starting point to just connect casually. And we invited 30, 40 people. We had 10 or so come on that first time. And the second time we did it, we had more like 5 to 7 come. So yeah, it's just a really helpful way to to identify and find that relational network, and then begin to hone in on those that are hungry and could be persons of peace.
So really on that first time, you were like casual and meaningful is about where you got to for the most part. And then your goal
Yep,
was to have another one with some of those that leaned in to get to the spiritual and then some discovery.
that's right. That's it. Yeah. And so this
So
last, yeah, go ahead.
I was just one more practical question. Like sometimes whenever we have, I'm just going to ask a question like, hey, if Ann and I were going to do this in our homes, sometimes if we invite a group of people over, I've tended to find that if it's bigger than our dining room table, which ours holds 8, we have 7 in our family. We usually put up
Yeah.
like another 8-foot table, but generally we got a couple of tables that are right in the same area in our home. But what I've tended to find is that if I have more people than will fit in the general dining room, dining area, that the conversations like that tend to turn into mingling instead of group. What have you experienced in terms of how does that conversation look? Did you find that everybody in the room was engaging in a single conversation, or were you mingling and having multiple times where that conversation was happening and then they came together? How did
Yeah.
that work?
We love that, even that term in the lost and found, that we want to bring together the found. We want to bring together some disciples that maybe they're starting to take steps in sharing their story and God's story, but they're not yet seeing a lot of fruit. And we want to model assist them in doing this. And so what we've seen is if we can bring a few disciples in that they're starting to get some confidence in sharing their story, little pods can actually begin to form in the room. And so even if you've got above a dining room table a number of people, they can begin to engage. And we actually have some other ladies here locally who did this, and you begin to have a few different groups form that can engage at a little more meaningful level. And so that's some of how I've filtered and looked at this. Of it'll kind of grow and multiply at the pace of the disciples that you have involved as well. So it's the lost that fit around the table, and then if it gets bigger than that, that's where you really get an opportunity for some ownership of those disciples to and vision cast on the front end. Hey, if you see a few over here, go over there and start talking to them, and then begin to engage with them, and that actually gives them some ownership and allows them to step up in growing in those skills.
What did the training look like in preparation for some of the found that were a part of that were disciples that you were saying, hey, I want you to engage in multiple little mingling groups. What are some ways that you prepped them for what was going to happen?
Yeah. So we have really found that conversation quadrant to be so helpful for, I think it's got a few different purposes. So it's got those 4 parts: casual, meaningful, spiritual, discovery, for tracking and identifying where our relationships are at. But when we have also trained that during the practice time in our 3/3 church model, what we found is people will get to a certain part or a certain stage of that process of casual to meaningful, and then it stops. And that's where the coaching comes in, where we can say, wow, it seems like all of your relationships are stuck at meaningful and they're not going beyond that. And then we can coach into the arrow between casual or between meaningful and spiritual, and give them some suggestions, even role model a little bit. We've actually found that to be super helpful. But it's training through that tool of the conversation quadrant, and then actually beginning to talk through some questions or challenges, or maybe just identifying in between the ears of that disciple, what is it that is keeping them from going to the next step? Is it they don't feel confident? They've never thought through words to say. They need some reps and practicing that. So we actually will just we'll talk through that, because what we found is, unless somebody's a really natural evangelist, it's the soft skills that are usually the barrier to them getting into those pods, getting into those conversations. And so we'll use the conversation quadrant kind of as an assessment to get a feel for where that disciple's at. And then we can figure out where to coach in. And then we invite them into the party to put those skills into practice.
What's a question I should have asked that I haven't yet?
Dude, I don't know if there's another question. I think the main thing that other piece I'll share, Dave, and then anything else you got, but this has come because we've engaged in some creativity around field 1 of entry. And again, I just want to I want to give credit and honor to Guy Caskey in Houston, the OG, who's been doing this stuff much longer than Dave and I. I think 97 is when he started doing this stuff. But his main counsel has been over the years of, he said, you do need solid set tools in gospel field, in discipleship, in church, in leadership. But he said, we're not creative enough around the entry. We need to get more creative if we're going to get into new people and places. And so some of where this has all come from is as we've gotten into New York and hitting up against a wall, or like again, those that are intuitive and can just do it, they're getting some traction, but everybody else is not. Just realizing we need we need a wineskin, we need like a way to do it, and then we need some modeling to really reproduce that if we're going to get to a bunch of multiplying church planters. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I've been learning, Dave, is as we're trying to catalyze this stuff. There's value at a certain stage in being creative around entry until we get to something that can multiply for multiple different leaders to do it.
One of the things I love about this is that I think oftentimes we miss the value and the importance of hospitality in the ministry of Jesus because it happens so often in his ministry that we just kind of look past the fact that he's at Matthew's house, he's at the wedding dinner at Cana, he's at Zacchaeus's house, he's at
Right.
Peter's house, he's at Mary and Martha and Lazarus's home, he's at, right? We just see over and over and over and over again all these places where Jesus is getting invited, and then there's a dinner and people are eating together. And when we really look at the church waffle that you and I talk about, where they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, the breaking of bread, we look at breaking of bread, and sometimes that gets truncated to being, oh, we take the Lord's Supper. But in Acts 2, we see that it says that they met in their house to house, breaking bread and eating with one another, right? So it wasn't just communion, the Lord's Supper, it was they're eating together, and there's something about being gathered around the table that really says you are community. I care about you. And something about having people around your dining room table or in your kitchen or in your home or even at their home and eating food and drink together that breaks down barriers, that gives you a way to start conversations that are going to be a little bit more lengthy because I understand we're going to eat together. And so friends eat together. And eating together outside of the home may be a good step, but eating together in a home is just a very intimate, relationship growing dynamic that our culture has really lost. And so a lot of times I think people are scared to go into our homes and eat because it's so foreign. Like you don't eat with people in their homes as much anymore. I grew up a rural kid off of a farm. It was totally normal. Like we didn't go out to eat because there was nowhere to go out to eat. And so when you were friends, you ate at somebody's home. But I would say that hospitality is a very important skill to build for gospeling and entering. And this very practical lost and found meal that you guys are doing is a great way to just dip your toes in the water of hospitality.
Amen. Amen. And just one final piece, you and I, Dave, we're both focused on the model, the ministry of Jesus as our blueprint of what we're going after. And he did two main things, but really one thing. But his entry strategy was relational networks to find a person of peace. Those are the two things, right? The person of peace, they're the person that carries the messenger or receives the messenger. They carry the message, and then they will adopt the mission, right? And so what we've found is, man, you can't make somebody a person of peace. Sometimes we'll use that analogy of like, if you need a doctor, you can't make somebody into a doctor, right? But identifying that person, especially in a culture where so much of relational ties are weakened or broken down, we're finding that a little more of that hospitality piece on the front end can be helpful for identifying and finding that person that's not only going to receive that message and receive us as a messenger, but then adopt that mission. And so this is what we're working with right now. And again, I think it's a field testing piece that we're sharing with you, but I've been doing it enough now to have some confidence that there's a model here that you could for sure try in engaging those two main things: lost and found party, engage the lost around you, and then have a party. And then number two, you're going to use this conversation quadrant with these 4 different parts to to get to this place of soft skills to equip disciples to do this stuff. So I'll share a story though, Dave, to kind of end us out here. You know, we did one of these just in this last week even, and we have been engaging with casual conversation and meaningful with some neighbors, and we invited along a couple that are they are Bangladeshi by background, and they actually were church planters over in Bangladesh. They moved here just a few months ago, so they're still pretty fresh, still pretty new to Queens. They're not fully they don't fully have the vision of 4 fields and simple reproducible yet, but they're definitely evangelists. And so we said, would you come along and join us for this? And they have a way of sharing the gospel. It's a little bit different, but they're doing it. And so they came and joined us a couple times now. And this last week, Ajim is his name, the man, and he saw the guitar on the wall after we had been sitting there. We'd had some great food. We had a neighbor make some really great food and bring it. We'd been eating, we'd been just talking around a bunch of different things, playing Baby Shark videos. I mean, it was just random. But then also revisiting some of the challenges and even some spiritual conversation. We were having some real direct conversation actually about Jesus and why did we believe in Jesus. But he grabs the guitar and he starts playing some Bengali songs, just secular songs. And then in the background, kind of low. And then all of a sudden he's like, sing if you know it. And he starts singing, how great is our God. He starts singing a Christian worship song. And I'm like, what's he doing? But he's doing this. So he just starts singing this and people pause and join in. And as he's doing that, I just had this thought come in my heart, my mind of, I wonder if somebody here needs healing. And then the second thought was like, I wonder if somebody's got a problem with their feet. And so after we finished the song, we just asked, anybody need prayer for anything? And actually, I just want to step out. I thought maybe somebody might have a problem with their feet. 3 of the people that we invited had problems with their arches and with their feet. And so we ended up praying for one of the ladies that came, and she had a 5 out of 10 pain. We pray a couple times. Her pain is completely gone. The Lord just moves mightily and powerfully. And then she takes off her shoes. She had indoor shoes on. She starts walking around barefoot. And she said, I can't remember the last time I didn't have pain walking barefoot. She said, what did you do?
Praise the Lord.
What did you do to me? And so Megan's like, well, so she just jumps into the gospel and just starts sharing with them. Super simple. And then everybody else who's there is like, well, pray for me too. And then, so it wasn't like on the spot, they're repenting and believing and they're turning to follow, but they said, we want to hear more about this. We want to learn more about this. And we're being bold with the gospel for sure. And then they're saying to us as they're leaving out the door, next time I want to bring this kind of food. Next time I want to talk about this. And so what we're seeing is simple reproducible model of that hospitality piece, using those 4 parts and just being open with our lives and prayer is helping us to identify persons of peace in our context.
Man, I appreciate the model that you and Meg are setting, because I know this isn't just you. Like Meg is 110% involved, probably more than you are with all the hospitality, because she's really good at that, having been someone who stayed in her home. And I just appreciate y'all's example. And I'm sure we'll probably do some follow-ups to hear how these are going. I would just highly encourage anybody who's listening, if you got any questions about how this is going, or questions that whenever you try to do it, that you're like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? Reach out. I'm sure Mark can give you some experience of what he shouldn't do and some things that he's done that you should do. And would love for you guys just to try some of these lost and found parties.
Thanks for listening, for watching. If this content has been helpful for you, please take a minute to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us to get this content out there farther, to serve Jesus, grow his kingdom, and accomplish the Great Commission until there is no place left. Much love to you guys. See you next time.